Okay, it is 6 o'clock, so time to get started here. Welcome. If you're new, thanks for tuning in for the first time. If you've been here before, I appreciate you coming back. What I'm going to be doing today is doing some swatching of some ink samples I was gifted back actually on July 4th. So it's been a bit. They've been sitting here needing to get put onto some coloring and Col-O-Dex cards to go into the swatch library that I have. So thanks for joining in, and let's get started. So first I'm just going to go through a couple of, make sure that music is down enough. Let's see here. I'm just going to show a couple of the products that I'm using. So if you're not familiar with these, you'll have a little bit of reference for what's being used when doing the swatching. So the first one is just the color ring cards. And this is one version from Well-Appointed Desk that kind of goes on a key ring. And here in a minute, once I'm done with the browser, I'll show what they actually look like. I have my ring sitting here on the desk. And then also there's the Col-O-Dex cards. And these go in an old time Rolodex. So if you see here, it kind of shows what they would look like there. Hello, Anne. Hello, Lisa. Thanks for joining in. This will be very familiar to Lisa, who Olive Octopus, who does Twitch streams and uses the coloring and Col-O-Dex cards often. But this is just one of the two varieties that I do for my swatch library. Now, most of my past streams have been in my A5 plotter that I've been using as a paper and ink testing journal of sorts. But I also do have other swatch cards as well. The other thing that I'll be using is I have the Teranishi Guitar glass dip pen. And this is what I use on these cards to write down the name of the ink after I've swatched it. And then I didn't think to pull a link up in advance for the swatching stick, but I'll show one of those here in a moment as well. So let's switch to this camera here. Okay, so as I said, this is the coloring. And you can see in here, I just have all the different swatches, and these are mostly sorted by color family. Now, I don't have tons of ink, so I still have it all on one ring, and there's still some room to go. But this is honestly about as much as you want to do for me if I want to be able to flip it over and have it not go crazy in a bag. And then the other variant is, although it looks like an ice cream sandwich, this is actually swatching cards. And I have that here because I think I'm going to have to open the new one, but this is one of the Col-O-Dex cards. And you can see it's got the little inserts here where you can put it into a Col-O-Dex or a Rolodex, And just to show where these will end up, that is my vintage, cleaned up and restored, double-sided metal Rolodex. You can see on the right is different inks. That's where all these cards we do tonight will end up. And in the left side, eventually, when I get around to it, I think I'm going to be doing a pen library of writing down a card, something like this. Probably not on the Col-O-Dex, but just a standard Rolodex card of just my pen inventory. So I can have a kind of a visual reference and record there as well. So all that being said, let's take a look at some of the inks that we'll be swatching tonight. And well, let me ask, would you rather me just grab them as we go, or would you like to see them? Because most of them are in little gifted vials here with the name of the ink on it. And actually just thinking through, I'll just go through them as we go, because I'm going to have to open the little baggie and whatnot. So let's just go on and get started with the first one. So I guess this will be our first one. Oh, and I didn't show what I'm going to be swatching with. I use the glass kind of drink stirring sticks, and that's just used, and you'll see once I do one here in a moment how that's used. Let me get the keyboard out of the way. Okay. And I know of who I've seen in the chat so far. I know Lisa is very familiar with swatching. And I forget, do you swatch as well, or how do you swatch, catalog your inks? And I'm going to put down just a shop paper towel to try and limit any accidents. It's one thing when doing this, the microphone arm sits right here where I can't see to the side. Let me actually try and adjust this a little to limit potential messes. Okay, that's a little better. I can actually see. So the first ink we're going to be doing is the Birmingham Pen Company Marigold. And all of these ink vials are courtesy of the Needle Girl. If you're in the pen community, you might have seen her name. She's a pen friend who's in the Atlanta area. Col-O-Dex with a Rolodex. Okay. So all you do for this is just kind of dip into the ink to get some on the glass. And everybody does this in their own way. And this one is a shimmer, it looks like. Or it's just absorbing differently on this card. And I have plenty of these stirring rods, so I won't be cleaning those. They're just going to go into the water there. I will be cleaning off the glass dip nib between each one, so I do not contaminate my samples. And I ordered today because I realized in prep for this stream, I do not have a good ink vial holder, so that's why I'm holding this and trying to not spill it everywhere. So soon, when I do ink samples again, I'll have something from the Pengineer 3D that'll hold these vials in a much more stable way than me trying to balance while streaming while doing all this at the same time. And just as a note, if the music is too loud or anything, please let me know, because I hear it a little bit different coming from this side. So if you wouldn't mind if it surges, and I think it shouldn't have any music with vocals if it plays like I asked it to, but we'll see. Okay, so that's the first one, and I just realized I should have kept that rod out to also swatch on this. So I have plenty. Let's use another one, and then next time, actually, I'm just going to move these over on the desk. It'll be a little bit easier. And the reason why I'm doing this on both is the ring version is one that I'm more likely going to take with me. I'm not going to take that big Rolodex with me anywhere because it would not travel well. It's heavy, it's bulky, it's overkill. So this way I can have a home reference, and actually my wife uses it probably more than I do because she likes to change inks with more frequency than I tend to do. So she can just flip through and find whatever ink is matching the pen or is suiting her ink needs at the moment to be able to find something to use. It does kind of sound like Kenny G at the moment. Okay. Let's get this vial closed up. I'm not the biggest user of ink samples. I'm very appreciative to have been gifted these, but that's when I realized that I didn't have a good method for really storing them. I only had a couple, and the last ink sample I remember getting was from Olive Octopus, where I literally just took the vial and dumped it into an Opus 88. So that was a very quick turnaround on that particular sample. I'm just going to set these off camera to the side, and then we'll kind of do a look at all of them at the end. Okay. And then for cleaning off the glass dip, since this is the first one, this one is not as involved as the colorverse shuttle that you might have seen in previous streams. You can just dip it in water, and then I do like to dry it off just to remove as much water as possible. And then for subsequent ones, I have a little spray bottle that I'll show, so that way I'm not cross-contaminating the clean water. Okay, so the next ink that we're going to grab, and I do have a couple of bottles as well that are newer that I need to make cards for. So once we get through the samples, I have a couple of bottles as well, like a couple more of the Lamy Crystals, the Robert Oster Pen Addict Fire on Fire, things like that. Okay, so this next ink is from the Wet Pen, and it's just the Blackberry. And this will be my first time ever using an ink from the Wet Pen. It's not one that I've had the opportunity to use before. I've only heard good things, so I would expect nothing less. After this, I might have to change the music. This sounds like an elevator, like we're in the mall and the elevator is playing. So I guess their jazz definition tonight on the streaming service I use is having a different definition than previous streams. So already instantly this ink lives up to its name, because that does look like blackberry jam, that color. And I just wanted to mention, if you want to see more advanced ink swatching, oliveoctopus.ink, Lisa does a lot more advanced, as her ink exploration includes mixing with water, because she does more painting and things like that with ink. So check out her website. She does, like I mentioned earlier, Twitch streams and whatnot, which are a great resource for a different style of ink swatching, because there's no right way. You find what works for you, and I have found that the simpler is a better fit for me. but it's cool to watch the more advanced with the mixing with water and things like that. Okay. So I do like that color. It's similar in tone to the Mont Blanc Enzo Ferrari, which is also kind of a matte purple, but it's going to be a nice one. I've been using more darker inks lately, just with more color variety, so I could see that one actually going into a pen potentially, and that's where I have a couple of new pens that I need to ink. So this is also a good way. I think I'm going to end up with one of the new Lamy crystals, because I'm very excited about those, but we will see. Yeah, your swatch cards are more like art, Lisa. I would agree with that. And I don't know if you want to throw the link to your site just in the chat, so that way if people are watching the rebroadcast and they didn't hear the URL, they'll be able to find a link to your stuff, especially with the St. Jude stuff coming up, where you'll be doing more streams. Always good to watch other stuff, especially the morning streams while you're getting ready for work or while you're working. If you have that ability, it's good background activity to passively participate with. Okay, so let's see what is going to be next. Okay, next up, this is Dominant Industry, a Wonder Pens exclusive called Ginger Chicken. And I've never heard of Sprouse Rights. I assume that is rights. Okay, so Dominant Industry Ginger Chicken. Yeah, it seems like with the wet pen inks, I was not familiar enough to know that I should have ordered immediately if I wanted to order them. So now I know for future, if there's a release, to don't question, just click buy. But I'm also not looking to have a ton of inks. I think in the past, if I was really in inks like I was pens, the FOMO aspect would have had me buying a lot more inks that probably would have sat on the shelf, because that's what a lot of my inks did for many years, because I would just use the same ones. So now with swatching and being able to visually see from other people, I've been able to be a lot more selective of what I'm going to add. So that's where the Lamy crystals, I really like those, and Beth likes them as well. One of the ones that I have here, if we get through the samples and there's still some time left, is the Azurite, I think, which is like a purple. And she just put that in the pen, and she actually texted me earlier today saying how much she loved it as she was using it at work. Lisa, didn't you just swatch the ginger chicken this week on one of your streams. Am I remembering that correctly? Yeah, recently. So I just had something chime that I don't know if that's something related to the stream. So let me just take a look. Be sure that everything is healthy. I'm not familiar with that random chime that popped in the ears. Okay, so that is the ginger chicken. And that's an interesting color. It reminds me, and maybe once it's fully dried, it'll be a little bit different. This is very similar to an ink that I have in my Gravitas, the Mont Blanc William Shakespeare Velvet Red. And I do like that color, so obviously there's a good chance I would pick this up just to have something in a similar variety. I do like that one. Okay. Let's remember to get this cleaned off. And maybe that was. You just never know because I'm still relatively new to streaming, and I think this is the first time I didn't really change much of anything. Okay, so there's an alert of some sort, so I'll look at that here in a second and see what it's actually talking about. Okay, it's just saying it's not saying it's bad, it's saying it's still healthy, so we'll go with that. Okay, so up next, this is kind of like just ink roulette because I have no idea what I'm going to be grabbing next. Birmingham Pen Company Sterling Silver. So that already sounds pretty interesting. Okay. And if you're not familiar with the coloring and Col-O-Dex cards, there is a smooth side and a rough side. I swatch on the rough sides. So just depending on if you want true consistency, I guess pick your side. I don't know if there's a right or a wrong side, but I do tend to swatch on the side with the texture. And it's nice to get samples of these Birmingham inks because most of the inks they sell are in massive bottles, but I don't think it would be very feasible to easily finish like a 100 milliliter bottle. Okay, Ginger Shop Cat. That makes more sense with the color that it is. That would be more orange cat to me than the Chinese food dish. Okay. This is an interesting. It's like it goes on. It's a purplish hue and then seems to dry more silver. Okay, so this is a dries to its true color ink. Good to know that. It's what it was looking like just from the initial swatch on the edges. Closed up here. You can already tell I'm going to really appreciate having a vial holder once it arrives, because even though they're closed, seeing vials just sitting on the desk is a little bit unnerving. So this is definitely, and I don't know how much the camera is going to pick up. The camera, at least from one screen, looks purple. But then the edges of this one, you can see where the line is starting to demarc into actual silver. And let me see if I can switch over to... That shows a little better where as it's drying, it's going from the purple to the silver. So that'll be an interesting one at the end to see how that has changed as the stream has gone on. It seems like the ginger chicken is winning the color in the rinse water so far. And I'm sure once we get to fire on fire, that's only going to help the orangish hue. And I'm kind of thinking that, aside from the Lamy crystals, which I can pick up locally at Gentleman Stationer, that Beth is using as well, I think I'm kind of at a good spot with inks, unless there's something that's... I've got a good selection of most of the color space to be a little bit more selective before picking up new bottles of things. But that being said, there might be a new shiny ink that comes up that I'm like, I must own that immediately. So I can only say, in theory, that's one thing with this hobby. There might be something that pops up that all of a sudden you have to have. Sorry for the ASMR, or you're welcome for the crinkling of the little bag. That picked up well enough. It was coming through my headphones better than I thought. Okay, so this is another Birmingham Pen Company. And this is Oil Rag. Now, this is one I've seen swatched before and I've been intrigued by, so I'll be interested to see what this one actually looks like, because this seems like it might be in my wheelhouse of colors. Even though trying to be more adventuresome with more colors, you have those. Most of mine are more on the dark side, but this already has a cool green. Lisa, I think you, yeah, the laptop, it's set far enough back that the desk mat should catch anything on it before any ink would hit their Sergeant Stretch, but there's only so much you can do since I don't actually own any desktops, and being able to have everything plug into it between 3 cameras, a prompter, and Stream Deck, and audio, and all that. I do like this color. And since these Birmingham Pen Company seem to dry a little bit different than they go down, that'll be another interesting one to see how it looks once it dries. Because when I think of oil slick, I think of a little bit of purples and pinks that kind of dip out, you know, if oil is spilled on the garage. As in every time change the oil, the part that doesn't go in the pan like it should. Lisa, I believe you have this ink. This seems to be in your wheelhouse with the... Is this one you would consider a swampy green? I have a valve Sergeant Stretch, and because I have a lifted Jeep, so that way I can route with a hose through the skid plates. Wonderful. The oil filter, where it is, there's not a way to get the oil filter off without making a complete mess. I have tried everything I can to put something under it, but it's just at an odd angle. A side-mounted oil filter that do every single bit except for the filter, but that's a good, like the sheen coming off of that too, and it is starting to kind of darken in some, that like I would expect with oil, so that'll be an interesting one to see once it's fully dry as well. Yeah, my wife's Jeep, it has a top mount filter, so that one's easy. It's the side angle bottom mount filter on mine that is just there's not a good answer. The last time I got oil changed, I took it somewhere because it was right before a trip and I didn't have time. And the people at the Jiffy Lube place looked at me crazy when I handed them a piece of tubing and I said, "You're going to need this." They had no idea what I was talking about until I explained. I've got a valve on my drain plug that you put this on and it's going to save you a lot of mess. Because if not, the oil comes out perfectly to get inside the skid plate and run down the back and runs out the back of the Jeep. Ask me how I know that the first time I got the oil changed after putting those plates on. Okay, so 2 more samples, then we'll get into the bottles. This one is Van Dieman's Essential Stone. So I don't even know if I've seen this one that I can recall in someone else's stream or whatnot, so that'll be an interesting one to see what comes up. And I almost broke my rule and forgot to clean the... Okay, there we go. And it seems like from a couple weeks ago stream, changing the overhead camera seems to have helped. Seems like focus is working and the picture is much clearer. So that's nice to see. Okay, so back to Van Dieman's Essential Stone. So I haven't seen many photos yet. The San Francisco Pen Show is going on right now. If you're watching this at a later date, today is obviously a Thursday. So has anybody seen any crazy photos of cool stuff yet? Or is that going to be more tomorrow where the FOMO will ramp up accordingly? The only thing that I've seen that jumped out was the Shown Design Monarch Evo with the blue color to it. That just looked amazing, but I think whenever I do get a Monarch, I'm more likely just going to get a nib and put it in a different pen versus, as much as I would love to have the all-in-one, and that is why we put a paper towel down, because my finger just went all over that bottom corner there. Is the San Francisco show over Labor Day weekend every year, or did it just happen to fall that way this year? So this is a nice grayish silver. It's like a darker Fuyuseogen from Iroshizuku. I like that. And if doing art with it, that would be great if you had a picture of an elephant. It's very elephant colored to me. Okay, that would make sense. Because normally when I think of Labor Day, I think of Dragon Con, and the chances of a huge past hobby of mine and then a current huge hobby both having major events on the same weekend just would have been a little bit too ironic. Okay, so this is another wet pen. This is the Deception Pass. And this is the last of the samples. Then we'll move into the bottles that I have sitting here, and this is going quicker than I thought, so I might grab some other bottles that I know I need to do the cards for as well if we get to that point. And I'm getting better about catching myself when I've not cleaned. At least it's easier to tell when this one's not clean versus the shuttle nib. It kind of hides the ink inside of it, so doing streams like this where you're doing multiple things. It's a true test of your multitasking ability. Okay, so the wet pen deception pass. Oh, I like the color already, just seeing it on the swatching stick. It's a nice blue. Okay, so yeah, I guess Labor Day, since it kind of moves around, I think more often than not, the way August ends, it would probably hit fairly often. Maybe not every year. I really like this color as it's drying too. Yeah, the Labor Day weekend is just that there's so many big things that happen during that time that it's, depending on what hobby you're in at the time, you might have to pick and choose. And especially for something like that, at least at PAX and Dragon Con, those are two heavy hitters. So it's like having to choose, the impossible choice there. So this is definitely a cool color. Went on more blue, but now it's drying into this kind of greenish hue. I definitely like this. This is one I could see buying a bottle of. That's in my color wheelhouse, especially, this one's showing it well. You can see the bands of the blue kind of popping out a little bit down and then down towards the bottom. No, definitely. The corporate conference Labor Day weekend is not going to be booked, so it leaves room for all the fun, geeky things. It's like I anticipate tomorrow, hopefully, to be a slow day at work because, different people are already taking off in advance to make the most of the holiday. And I'm a little bit torn. I don't know what I want my first huge pen show to be. Been to a couple of the smaller ones like Atlanta and Arkansas. I'm thinking I want to go to DC over San Francisco, possibly. That just seems like, I don't know why. I was actually having this conversation, I think, with Anne earlier. Having gone to Dragon Con for so many years, it's all about scale. Dragon Con is 70,000 plus people, which is ridiculously massive. But then in the pen community, a 6,000 person show is massive. So it's it's a whole different scale. It's just a, I mean, eventually, of course, I'd like to make it to both, but. So this is one more vial. This is not from Needle Girl. This is actually from Chad of Eel and Anchor via Matthew Chin. This is the, I think I had a tab open. I can show this one. This one is the Blue Orient. That was the Manila Pen Show ink from 2025. So I was able to get a sample of that at the Arkansas Pen Show this year. And I never labeled it because it was literally the only sample vial I had sitting around. So I'll go in and swatch that, and then I should add a label to it afterwards as well, just to not have random unlabeled vials of ink sitting around. And I actually have this ink in my Mont Blanc Rouge Noir that I had Matthew grind at that show. Because it wrote too wet, so he was able to slim it down and dry it up some so it fits my tiny scrawl. Yeah, it's, Lisa, I get what you're saying. There's a couple of factors for me. Is the cost of going to California. I could probably do multiple smaller shows that I think would be more fun versus one big one. You know, when you factor in, I mean, and that's a hard call because, you know, smaller shows, I like the people aspect more because most of the stuff you can kind of get any time of the year. So that's going to factor in. It'll be a hard decision, but, you know, some of the, like, I've never really spent much time in Colorado. That might be a cool show. When I didn't mention, this is the Dieman Blue Orient. And this is cool because it kind of has a purplish undertone when it dries. Yeah, and Colorado, I'd like to go to Dallas. I'd like to just do a weekend trip down to Houston. You know, I grew up there, but now there's 2 stationery stores there that everybody talks about. So I was like, well, I did not know about them when I lived there. So, you know, I could be dealing with that now. I mean, in reality, it's not really, any pen show is going to be good. It's what any kind of event is what you make of it. So anything you go to, you're going to have a good time if you want to have a good time. You can work through whatever issues. I'm going to switch this back over to that desk camera as well. Just to show, look at the purples that kind of come out on that. You know, it's kind of tealish in the light, and then the blues and purples and teals that all kind of, this almost looks more oil slickish to me in some ways than the Birmingham oil slick, because you get those blues and purples in there. And then this one, I think it's showing to a level from the overhead, even it's picking up on it. Yeah, I've ordered my A5 Shiranami plotter from Drum Ghouls. I ordered the Dominant Industry book from there because I had some shop money that was going to, I guess, expire since they're not doing the little money you get anymore if you were buying stuff through various Shopify stores. and they were great to deal with dealing with the bad rings on my initial plotter. They swapped it right out and got a new one sent out to me. So that's always good, having good customer service, but it seems to be common at all the stationery stores, honestly. Okay, so we're up to bottles of ink. So we'll go with everybody's bright orange favorite, the Robert Oster Fire on Fire. And I definitely want to clean this if I'm dealing with bottles of ink. And I want to make it down to New Orleans again to go to Papier Plume, because... And what year was that the Fleet people met up in New Orleans? Was that 2017? 2015? 16? I don't remember what year it was, but a whole bunch of friends, we all know each other through Dragon Con, met up in New Orleans and did a long weekend trip. And it was the first time, well, I guess the only time I got to go to Papier Plume. And I was into pins then, but not in the same way now. I was not adventuresome. I kind of had my pins and stuck with them. It'd be a whole different experience now. And New Orleans is great because the French Quarter is just cool. Okay, so Robert Oster Fire on Fire. This is not fire on fire on fire, so it doesn't have shimmer. We'll give it a little bit of a shake just to agitate it up. And I didn't think about that I was going to be adding this in, or I would have worn a different watch today that would have worn the Pen Addict watch to compare the oranges. So I'll have to do that on another stream. Compare the Fire on Fire swatch to the Pen Addict watch to see how close the oranges actually are. The nice thing with Gmail, you can just kind of search. I know I did this thing at one point in time, and half the time find your receipt to get exact time. On that one. Colorado just seems like it would be a cool show. I don't know why. I've only been to Colorado a couple times, and it was for work. Like, one was a middle of winter. The company I was working for had to rack and stack new hardware in a data center. So I literally flew in, was there for less than 24 hours, and flew home. So I didn't get to see anything. So getting a proper trip would be nice. You know, every time I hear someone's going to New Orleans, Anne, I reference that pub to them that had the door to the pub was a TARDIS, because that was really fun and that's really cool and it's geeky, but it's subtle geeky. And I have no idea if it's actually still there. Hopefully it is. That was a cool little spot. Wasn't it like, I want to say Rose and Crown, but I think that's the place at Disney. But no, I really liked that place. So obviously nice and bright orange, and you can see as the light hits differently, it's kind of got some yellow hues that'll come through with the different light. So definitely a cool ink there. Okay, so let's see. I got 3 more that I grabbed out. So we'll probably stop with those because I only have 4 more clean glass rods. So this is I have the Andryllium Spirula Green. Forgot they did not put the actual names on the Lamy Crystal bottles. So let me reach over and grab the boxes so I have the exact names. These were last minute additions because they were sitting to the side of the desk. I've got the Azurite. It's the one that Beth has been using and loving. And then the Bennett. And we had a good debate at the gentleman station, or at least it happened to be there, Joe, myself, what the pronunciation is of this. Bennett-Waite, we think? Something like that. And I have no idea why balloons just came down the screen, but okay. Crown and Anchor, that was it. I knew it had crown in it. Bet that would have been an interesting place around coronation time. I bet you they really would have taken that to the thematic levels. Which, speaking of coronation, if you're not subscribed or you're not familiar with Fig Boot on pins, he had a really cool video a while back of the stunt double pin that was made for King Charles to sign the official coronation paperwork. Find that on YouTube, Fig Boot on pins. Yeah, I do remember that, and it's like you take the Algiers ferry across, and then you go up and to the right, and it was like at the end of a block. I remember that. I could tell people how to get there. I just couldn't remember the exact name of it. It's fun how brains work like that. So we'll start with this Azurite, which is the purple. And these Lamy Crystal inks, apparently they've been around forever, and I learned of them through Joe, Gentleman Stationer, where he was kind of looking at kind of the backlist items of Lamy and did a video and kind of had them in the store. And I think now I have 4 different Lamy Crystals and pins. Got the Topaz, the Azurite, the Amazonite, the Ruby, and the Peridot are all in pins, and then I think Beth has 3 or 4 in her pins as well. So not crazy expensive, good color, great performance. So Lamy's kind of like Twisby. You think of them for pins. You don't necessarily, at least for me, I don't think of ink when I think of Twisby or when I think of Lamy. I think of the pins. But most all the pin companies have some sort of ink offering, even if it's a small one like Narwhal has the few that they have. So it's kind of like a sleeper. Unsung, unrealized, the gray and brown ones. That would make sense considering your preferred color palettes. Olive Octopus. And just to, Lisa, I hope you don't mind, to tell the story. we're in Gentleman Station, and I was like, aren't there, is this all the Lamy Crystal? And she looks at the shelf and she's like, oh, missing 2. There's not this one and this one. It's like a walking encyclopedia, ink encyclopedia of sorts. That made me laugh. I'm still thinking of that, of how you could look at the shelf and realize, oh, nope, we're missing 2. The same with the Teranishi guitars inks. Right. But I can also fully appreciate that because my brain does weird things like that of memory of, remember the random bit of information that you think you'll never need again. And then when you have to be called upon to reference it, it's like you just learned it the day before. I'm definitely, before next week's stream, gonna have to tweak this whatever playlist I selected for jazz, because this is more like Vegas show tune almost than nice, calm, soothing jazz. Okay, so that's the azurite, and so this is already interesting. Switch to the desk camera. This is starting. It's almost like the well, I guess it's a Lamy thing. If you think of the dark lilac, you can see as it's changing color into drying into a green. So maybe that Lamy just doesn't want to have a purple ink. They want to have a purple ink that becomes a green ink. I was not aware that. I mean, look at that. That's cool. You can see it literally changing colors as it's very Hulk. It's like some the magical purple pants of the Hulk that become green. So yeah, I was not aware because I haven't actually used this yet. I have a new 3776 that I bought because I realized I did not own a normal extra fine platinum nib. And I'm going to be remaking my extra fine nib video before too long. So I needed to add that into the list. I'm trying to shoot for 30 different nibs between grinds and whatnot. But man, look at that. That left one is a perfect example now of like, although it kind of looks like an eggplant because the purple and then the green on the end. Who knew? So that's unexpected for sure. The Lamy Crystal Azurite. So I have to compare the greens at the end to the, because I need to put this one in my ink swatching plotter to see how they dry and how it compares to the dark lilac, because that'll definitely be interesting. Okay. Texture side up. Turn this off real quick. Get to these last 2. Listen, when you have a stationery store that's literally between where you are and your home, I mean, is it a bad thing to stop even if it's a third time? Let's be realistic. I mean, come on. Nashville's fortunate to have a really active pen club. So where pen club was meeting, Gentleman Stationer. So we went after pen club. Normally, sometimes we'll go before, because that's kind of a weekly thing. You never know what random stuff is going to have shown up, because half the time Joe's like, yep, this showed up from Japan. I ordered it so long ago, I don't really remember what's in the box because, shipping and things like as it is. So this is the Andrelium Spirula Green. So there's always a chance of something cool and new, and like the Canopus paper, I didn't realize that I should have bought it the day I was in there, that was literally unboxing it. I didn't know. The 2 sheets I was given as a sample from someone in Pen Club I really like. So that's definitely one that I want to keep an eye on. And I didn't mind having it in the Bible size since I have the Bible size plotter. But I'd like to give that a try. I got an A5 size. Hopefully after San Francisco, that'll be a more common thing, having more size options for that paper. See, you had self-control. You didn't buy something, and I almost put that on the wrong side of the card. I'm excited for Gentleman Stationer. The store is doing well enough that currently, if you're not familiar with it, it's kind of like a mixed use where it's a couple of shops and then storage unit type thing in the back. So it's kind of a mixed store / industrial-ish area. But someone in that same shopping center moved out. So Joe is actually going to have where you're not walking around the corner of the building. You'll have actual glass window storefront. So that'll be really exciting because he's going to keep the current space and have it as like a small event space and still be able to do his shipping and stuff from there. So that's just going to be, bonus for if you're traveling to Nashville area, you can visit. Or for those of us who live here, more chance of almost like an event space for pen stuff is harder to come by than you would think. So that'll be nice to have potential option for certain things. And then we also have Butler Stationery, which is a little bit south of Nashville and Columbia, which I think I am heading to because I haven't been there in a bit on Saturday. Because also with Gentleman Stationery being closed, I have to go to a stationery store on a weekend. It's just kind of a thing now. You kind of get used to it. Yeah, Sergeant Stretch, it's exciting for Joe, to go from an online business to a physical store and then pretty much needing a bigger physical store in that kind of short time. That's that's just so cool. And to have that local is also just the icing on the cake. Okay. Get this closed up. And actually, after I get this done, while giving a little bit of the last ones a little bit of time to dry, I have a bag of pins that I was sent from an adult age nephew who lives in New York City, Midtown, that he saw on Marketplace that I've kind of glanced into. I know it's 2 Watermans, a Parker, Safari, and I blanked on the other one. That might have been it. But that'll be neat to look at. I'm going to figure out what I want to do. I think they're all going to write. I mean, it seems like someone's either just clearing out a drawer or something. So I think they're steel nib Watermans. One of them is called the Elite, I believe. But, it was like $75 for 5 pins. So they'll probably mostly be catch and release. I might keep one of the Waterman and get it ground or something like that because I think they're almost all medium nibs from what the listing showed. Okay. On to the final Lamy with the name that I'm fairly certain I'm not pronouncing correctly at all. Benetoit. I've never even heard of that. Since these are based off stones, you know, who knows? So immediately the box color looks nothing like that to me. The box color is kind of like almost more like matching this paper towel, where that ink in that cap looks like a completely different color in the blue family. So this should be interesting to see how this actually swatches. Yeah, definitely night and day difference from the packaging. Unless it dries to a much, much lighter hue. So knowing now that the purple one dries to a green, maybe this is what'll go in the 3776 instead. Although I'm debating, I just posted the video of using the Preppies and Cocoonios for a week. Might just throw a platinum cartridge in it and call it done. Right through a cartridge and then switch to something, because it did come with a converter, I believe. But make sure I'm spelling this correctly. Okay, get this closed up and set aside here. So definitely different than the packaging. It's a nice kind of royalish blue. Showing pretty true from what I'm seeing to the camera as well. Been trying to keep the white balance on all of these cameras to match as accurate as possible, which is tricky with having enough lights to see stuff and do that, but kind of nice. And it's got a darker edges, so a little bit of variety in there, or variation. So we'll give that just a little bit of time to dry, and we'll get this cleaned up and look at those other pens, and then put all the inks that I've swatched out at once and take a look at all of them. Benetoite. Yeah, it's one of those spellings that, you know, the phonetics versus the actual spelling, some variety there. And if you didn't see this before, I think I had it open at the beginning. I like this because I can close it. I keep this in my rickshaw that I take to pen club. So that way I always have a dip pen with me. If there's swatching or something I want to try, it's an easy way to do it. And it's protected. Protects the tip. Sorry about hitting the microphone there. Okay. So this was the bag o' pens. So we have a blue safari. This is one of the Watermans. It's considered, the color is considered precious. It's stainless steel, but for some reason, that's right, it was two safaris. Got a leather pen case, some sort of little velvet bag thing. Another Waterman. A Parker. And then an assortment of cartridges, and I recognize these long ones as being Waterman cartridges because I do have, my first fountain pen was actually a Waterman, and it looks like a Waterman converter as well. So that'll be handy if, you know, in testing these out, just being able to pop one of the cartridges between. But, you know, for 75 bucks, it's actually not bad because, let's see. This one's a fine nib, standard steel. Actually has a converter in it, so that's a plus. It's ironic to get this one because I only own a couple of safaris and I own 2 of the charcoal. So do I need a third charcoal? No. Is this one probably going to move on? Yes. So if anybody's in the market for a medium nib charcoal safari, I know a guy selling one. Okay, so this one is one of the Watermen, and I guess this must be like an entry-level Waterman. They're pull caps, dual-tone steel nib, it looks like. You know, just kind of a basic pens. It has that feeling. Yeah, only one of them had a converter, so that's why I was like, you know, I did mental math. I was like, you know, even if I sell those for, you know, 15 bucks each, because I actually have a box I can put this one in because I have a box from mine, you know, since I don't really use safaris because I like the finer nibs, you know, I can make a video on it. I can rehome them to someone or gift them to somebody, you know. And like the Parker, you know, none of these feel like high end. They're kind of like the entry Parker, like modern Parker, and these Watermans. Trying to think of how to describe the material. They feel cheap, if that makes sense. You know, there's just that, just like the fit and finish on them isn't like my other Waterman. It has a gold nib and whatnot. It just has a different feeling. Or the actually, technically, I have two Waterman. I have a Waterman Paris. That one just feels a little bit more substantial as well, even though it's a, you know, plastic body. But you know, this one's kind of cool. Just the dual tone standard color nib. So this is the one I was thinking I might keep. Just get the nib ground down a little bit now, because none of these nibs look like they've had any work done to them, and for this kind of collection and, you know, selling them in a baggie in New York City, I wouldn't expect nib work to have been done, but you know. So that'll be a fun, just kind of a preview of, I'm going to do a video on that in some way. I don't exactly know what the shtick will be with it, but if nothing else, just getting them, you know, making sure they all function and then figuring out what to do with them. But now this, the little 1-pin sleeve, it's from Paradise Pen Company, it says on there. But, you know, a little leather, probably leatherette with a lining on the inside for a single pen sleeve. Not the best, but it'll work. And then this would be just be good to put a pin in if I'm shipping it somewhere to someone else. So if I end up selling one of those, I can just throw it in here to give it a little bit of protection. But kind of a fun little side experiment when you get a random text from a family member. Hey, I saw this on Marketplace and thought of you. You want me to pick them up for you? Okay, so Paradise Pins was a chain. That's good to know. I was not familiar with that. So what I'm going to do for all of these inks, just pull the Col-O-Dex cards since they're a little bit bigger. I think that'll make it easier to show them all side by side. And apparently also show the inconsistency of how I do the swatching, because some of them are much more area covered than others. Okay, so let's get these a little bit more visible. Wet pen by the wet pen. Yeah, so that azurite, literally, if I handed this to you and said, yeah, this is a purple ink, would you believe me? I mean, it started as a deep purple. So it's definitely just like the dark lilac of, you know, we heard you like purple, so we're going to give you green. Because there's a slight little undertone you can kind of see. But, and I guess in the writing you can kind of see it a little bit too, but overall that is a green ink. Yeah, who would have known? I never would have guessed that. So now when Beth gets home from work, because she had to go to the office today, I want to ask her about that. And because she said she's loved that ink, and now I want to know, is she writing on, I don't know what paper she's using it on. Is it locking it in the purple? Or is she going to go back and open up pages she used it on and it's going to be like green? Because that might just be paper dependent as well. I think she might have been using Archer and Olive, but that'll be interesting to see. But so this is everything that I swatched tonight. I've got the wet pen Deception Pass, the wet pen Blackberry, the Androlium Spirula Green, the Birmingham Pen Co oil rag, Lamy Crystal Benatoy, whatever the pronunciation was, the Mystery Azurite that's supposed to be purple and is actually green, Robert Oster Fire on Fire from the Pen Addict, the Birmingham Pen Co Sterling Silver, Dominant Industry Ginger Chicken, the Dieman Blue Orient, which was the Manila Pen Show ink, and I'll pull that one over to the side camera here in a second. That one's really cool. That the overhead camera does not look to be showing the variation very well. The Van Diemen's Essential Stone, that's a nice gray, and then the Birmingham Pen Co Marigold. So let me pull this one over to the side. So look at that sheen and just variety on there. I really like that. And when I'm using this in my pen, I don't really see that variety because the finer nibs. So it's nice to see that it does have that kind of variety with the color. And if there's any of these others that you want me to hold up close, let me know and I can easily do that. I do like that Essential Stone. Come on, focus. There we go. It's a nice gray. Yeah, I'm still, though, kind of shocked. And now, in this Deception Pass, I think if I was going to buy a wet pen ink of these two, I would definitely get that one. That would actually match my first Opus 88, the Minty, perfectly. So that might be what happens with the rest of that sample is I'll just dump it in there, and that'll be re-inking that pen. Because I'm going to have to take that to the Pelican Hub, because that's the day I got it last year. So it only makes sense to take the pen back to Pelican Hub on the subsequent year to have there, even though it's not a Pelican. So I know for Olive Octopus and for Anne, you have Pelican Hub. Sergeant Stretch, do you have a Pelican Hub near you that you're going to be going to, and anybody else who might be watching, if you're able to respond in chat? Those are always fun. If you're not familiar, Pelican Pens puts on a kind of like mini pen show type events around the world. And in the past, we've gotten a bottle of ink of a color. Hasn't been any word yet because it's later than normal this year. And with all the shipping stuff going on right now in the world, who knows if they'd even be able to ship to all the various cities, at least for the stateside. I'm sure international, they'll have no issues, but yeah, so that's the swatching. And then the bonus, looking at the pens that came in from New York. So, I appreciate you taking some time this evening. This is always interesting and fun. I like being able to see the chat and respond while doing this. Since I started YouTube, I found I like the people interaction more, which is odd because you would think it would be the opposite if you're doing YouTube, but being able to interact and have a conversation, even if it's one-sided, being able to see the chat and respond has been fun, a fun part of this, and doing the live streams is the best way to kind of keep that going. So I didn't have anything else for tonight. If there's no questions that come in the chat, I do want to mention I will be doing this again next Thursday. And don't forget to check out oliveoctopus.inc. Lisa is going to be starting to do the Twitch streaming stuff for the St. Jude that's through Relay, that like Pen Addict and the Relay, formerly Relay.fm network do for the month of September for St. Jude. And just a fundraiser for the pen community and the tech community to kind of give that support in a fun way. And, it's enhanced by different content creators and streamers and podcasters. So definitely a unique way to contribute to a worthy cause of St. Jude. So other than that, hope to see you again next week. If you're new, thanks for watching. Check out other videos on the channel. If you wouldn't mind dropping a like on the stream or on any videos, that really does help out. So until next time, I'll see you on the next week.